Let me begin by telling you something that very few people will admit. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they panic when the heat is on. They crack when pressure shows up dressed as uncertainty. They abandon the mission the moment discomfort knocks at the door. You see, staying calm isn't just a soft skill, it's a wealth secret. Remaining unshaken in moments of chaos. That's the edge. In the pursuit of wealth, you will face storms, emotional storms, financial storms, storms of opinion, storms of fear. But here's the truth. Your calm is your currency. If the mind is turbulent, the plan gets blurry. If the spirit is unsettled, the vision dies quietly. And if your focus is scattered, your opportunities vanish while you're too distracted to notice. The question isn't, will life test you? Of course it will. The real question is, have you trained yourself to stay calm under pressure? Have you rehearsed how to stay focused when your bank account dips? Do you remain unbothered when critics raise their voices louder than your dreams? Because I promise you, the wealth you're after doesn't arrive in calm weather, it arrives through calm thinking in stormy weather. The man or woman who can hold their vision steady while the world shakes, that person doesn't chase wealth. Wealth is drawn to them. So tonight I want to give you something more than strategies. I want to show you how to build the inner infrastructure of a wealthy mind, one that doesn't bend in the wind, one that doesn't flinch when risk knocks, one that remains unbothered while still fully alive. Because the world will always be loud, but wealth listens only to those who remain quietly powerful. Let me tell you something that took me years to understand, but only moments to change my life. It's not what happens that determines your destiny. It's how you respond to what happens. In times of pressure, when the heat is on and the stakes are high, most people react. They let their emotions take the wheel. And in doing so, they often steer themselves off the road to success. But the few who rise to wealth, real wealth, emotional, spiritual, and financial learn the discipline of response over reaction. You see, a reaction is emotional, immediate, and often rooted in fear or frustration. A response, on the other hand, is deliberate. It's thoughtful. It's driven by vision, not by panic. A man once told me, when you lose your temper, you give away your power. And power, especially under pressure, is what separates the wealthy mind from the struggling one. Let me give you an example. I remember early in my career, a business deal fell through unexpectedly. We had invested time, energy, and resources, and it all crumbled in a day. My first instinct was to blame someone, to lash out, to defend my position, but I had a mentor who taught me a better way. He said, Jim, never trust your first reaction in a storm. Step back. Breathe. Respond as the man you want to become, not the boy who is frustrated. That lesson saved Minot, just in that moment, but in countless situations after. Seneca once said, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Wisdom doesn't come in the calm, it is forged in the storm. That pause between what happens to you and what you choose to do next, that's where character is built and empires are born. When you're building wealth, risks are part of the game. So is pressure. But if every time the market dips, or a partner disappoints you, or a plan fails you, fly off the handle, you haven't trained your mind, you've merely trained your reactions. And reactions will cost you relationships, credibility, and money. Responses, the right responses, earn you compound interest in all three. So here's what I learned, and what I now teach. Pause long enough to connect your response to your principles, not your emotions. Practice stillness. In stillness, the fog clears. And when the fog clears, your next step becomes obvious. It might not be easy, but it'll be right. Remember this, discipline is the foundation upon which calm is built. And calm, under pressure, is not weakness. It is wealth in motion. Let me offer you a quiet truth that very few ever stop long enough to hear. The mind, left untrained, will always serve fear before it serves focus. But the mind, once rehearsed in advance, becomes your greatest ally under pressure. That's why I learned and then taught the power of mental rehearsal. If you want to stay calm when everything is on the line, you've got to see yourself calm before the chaos ever arrives. Now, this isn't wishful thinking, it's preparation. The same way a pilot rehearses emergency landings in a simulator, or a soldier trains under controlled pressure before the battlefield. You and I must train our minds to remain composed when pressure shows up, because it will. Life will hand you moments where everything you built is tested: your patience, your courage, your discipline. And if you've already seen that moment in your mind 100 times, you'll be ready. I used to rehearse speeches in my head while walking through the woods. Not just the words, but the nerves, the mistakes, the crowd noise, the pressure. I'd feel the tension before it came, and I'd practice breathing through it. By the time I stood on stage, I had already done it a dozen times. That's the power of rehearsal. It reduces novelty, and with less novelty comes less fear. A wise saying reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. But I would add, when we imagine our strength instead of our suffering, we suffer far less. Rehearse calm. Rehearse composure. Picture yourself receiving bad news and choosing wisdom instead of panic. Picture the failed deal and yourself focused, not flustered. That kind of mental practice is not pretending it's priming your mind for mastery. Think of a tennis player. They don't wait for the championship match to start visualizing victory. They see themselves holding the trophy long before they ever swing the racket. They anticipate the pressure, the crowd, the critical shot sand. They rehearse their responses. You must do the same. If you want to attract wealth, you have to train yourself not just to dream big, but to act steady. You have to see yourself navigating risk, not avoiding it. Here's a quote I came to live by. We don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. That applies to the battlefield, the boardroom, and the bank account. And training happens first in the mind. So rehearse calm. Every day, take 10 minutes and walk through the storm in your mind and walk through it like a champion. If you want to build a wealthy life, prepare your mind not just for success, but for pressure. Because how you behave when it's hard will determine what you have when it's easy. Let me tell you something that changed the way I faced every storm in my life. It's not the chaos around you that breaks a man, it's the philosophy within him. Your philosophy is your compass. It's the deep beliefs you carry about life, about struggle, about wealth, and about your place in the world. And when the wind starts blowing, it's your philosophy that decides whether you hold steady or fall apart. I meet people all the time who think life owes them calm seas. They believe if they work hard enough or think positively enough, adversity should leave them alone. But life doesn't work that way. Not in business, not in relationships, not in health, and certainly not in wealth building. The moment something doesn't go their way, they panic. Not because the storm is too big, but because their philosophy is too small. See, I used to think success meant finally reaching a place where everything would be smooth sailing. No more setbacks, no more tough days. But the wiser I got, the more I understood. Storms are part of the package. Every venture will have its winter. Every dream will be tested. But I changed the game when I adopted a new philosophy. I stopped expecting it to be easy. I started expecting it to be worth it. A farmer doesn't resent the winter. He knows it's part of the cycle. He uses it to rest, reflect, and prepare for spring. That's a wealth mindset. That's what gives a person peace. Because once you stop fighting the nature of the journey, you free up energy to focus on growing stronger in the storm instead of trying to avoid it. The ancient saying goes, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And your estimate comes from your philosophy. If you believe every problem is proof that you're off track, you'll give up too soon. But if you believe problems are part of the track, you'll keep moving with calm and purpose. I've faced business losses. I've had partnerships go south, plans fall through, even audiences walk out, but I didn't lose my head. Because my philosophy said, this is part of the deal. This is part of becoming. And that belief gave me peace where others found panic. So let me urge you, upgrade your philosophy. Build one that's strong enough to hold you steady when everything around you shakes. Not one based on ease, but on endurance. When your philosophy embraces reality, your peace becomes unshakable, and that's a mindset the wealthy always carry. When I was a young man just starting out, I used to waste a lot of time and energy worrying about things I had absolutely no control over. The markets, politics, competition, what someone else thought of me. I'd lose sleep over it. I'd get distracted, frustrated, and sometimes even paralyzed by fear. And then one day an old mentor of mine leaned in and said something simple that changed my thinking forever. He said, "You can't control the wind, Jim, but you can adjust your sails." That one truth became a guiding light for me, especially under pressure. Because in life, in business, in building wealth, there will always be winds you can't predict. The economy will shift. Opportunities will dry up. People will criticize, judge, and sometimes betray. And if your peace depends on those things going your way, you'll always be at the mercy of the storm. But here's the secret. When you train your mind to focus only on what you can control, you take back your power. You reclaim your calm. You start to operate from a place of strength, not stress. You may not control the price of oil, but you control how you prepare for changes in your industry. You don't control your boss's mood, but you control how professionally you show up every day. You can't control what your competitors are doing, but you control your innovation, your attitude, your work ethic. And I'll tell you something, powerful those who master their inner world end up influencing the outer world far more than those who try to force everything around them to behave. That's the foundation of a wealth mindset. You want to become unshakable? Then master your focus. Direct it like a laser toward what's within your reach. Your thoughts, your emotions, your daily disciplines. In one of the old texts it says, "Better is he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh the city." That's ancient wisdom. Rule your spirit, rule your outcomes. Because when you discipline yourself to focus only on what you control, everything changes. The noise fades. The pressure loses its grip. And your mind becomes a fortress, not a sponge. Pressure will come, that's certain. But when your peace isn't tied to the uncontrollable, when your energy isn't scattered chasing things outside your reach, you become the kind of person who builds wealth with calm, confidence, and clarity. And that's the kind of person the world rewards. When I first began successfully studying it, I realized that most people lose not because of what happens to them, but because they're unaware of what's happening within them. They don't recognize when their emotions are running the show. They don't catch it when distractions take the wheel. And as a result, they live on impulse instead of principle. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned is this: control begins with awareness. You see, you cannot improve what you do not observe. You cannot correct what you're not willing to confront. A man who doesn't know he's drifting cannot steer the ship back on course. So, if you want to train yourself to remain calm under pressure, to stay focused in the face of fear, you must first become a student of your own mind. Start by noticing the moments you feel shaken. What triggers your frustration? What throws off your rhythm? Is it criticism? Is it the unexpected? Is it self-doubt? Start recording those moments, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Write them down. Build the habit of reflection, because reflection turns experience into insight. I remember during a tough business season early in my career, I found myself snapping at small things, losing sleep, letting one bad meeting ruin an entire day. And it hit me, I was reacting like someone without a strategy. So I started tracking my moods like a banker tracks his books. At the end of the day, I'd ask, where did I lose my peace today? What caused it? And how could I respond better next time? That one habit daily review transformed my emotional life. You see, calm doesn't come from ignoring your emotions, it comes from mastering them. And mastery begins with awareness. A wealthy mind is not a mind that avoids pressure. It is a mind that recognizes the moment pressure hits and chooses the response. As the Stoics once said, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. And I agree. The battle for wealth, peace, and progress is not out there, it's in here. In your thoughts, your triggers, your patterns. So train yourself to pay attention, not to the chaos around you, but to the stirrings within. That's where calm is born. That's where power begins. Disciplining now. There's a word people often misunderstand. Some hear it and think of punishment, restriction, or rigidity. But I tell you, discipline is not punishment. Discipline is training. It is the refining fire that tempers the mind, strengthens the will, and sharpens the vision. You show me a man who stays calm in the storm, and I'll show you a man who's practiced calm long before the storm arrived. You see, inner peace doesn't happen by accident. It's not a mood or a personality trait. It is a result of productive, disciplined living. Just as a soldier trains for battle before he ever steps onto the field, the wealth-minded individual trains their mind long before the pressure comes. That's how you stay composed when the risks rise, when the markets drop, when deals go sideways. You don't wait to become disciplined after things get difficult. You become disciplined so that difficulty doesn't throw you off course. Let me tell you what discipline looks like in practical terms. It means waking up on purpose, not by accident. It means starting the day with structure, not scrolling. It means choosing your actions in advance of no, letting the chaos of the world choose for you. For years, I started every morning with a simple routine, reading something that fed my mind, reviewing my goals, and setting my top priorities for the day. That routine didn't just give me productivity, it gave me power. It gave me calm, because I wasn't reacting to life. I was directing it. A calm mind is not a lazy mind. It is a disciplined one. A wealthy life is not built on scattered effort. It's built on intentional, repeated action. As the old proverb goes, he who governs himself is more powerful than he who conquers a city. That's the kind of strength discipline brings. Not the kind that shows off, but the kind that shows up every day, no matter what. So train yourself to follow through, to do what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. Because when your habits are strong, your emotions don't need to be. That's how calm is cultivated. That's how focus is fortified. That's how wealth becomes inevitable. Now, let's talk about emotional detachment. Not the cold kind, not the lifeless kind, but the wise kind. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're indifferent or that you've shut yourself off from life. No, what it means is that you've trained your emotions to serve your mind, not sabotage it. When chaos strikes, and believe me, you must be able to separate yourself from the storm. Not physically, but mentally. Because wealth is never attracted to panic. Wealth is drawn to calm, to order, to clear judgment. You've got to learn to pause, step back, and see things as they are, not as your emotions exaggerate them to be. I remember during a business crisis years ago, one of my partners was gripped with fear. There was tension in the air, deals collapsing, money at risk. He wanted to react immediately, to force a quick fix, but I paused. I stepped away from the noise and took a walk. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much to make a foolish decision. I needed clarity, not chaos. And by the time I came back, I had a new angle, a solution no one had seen in the heat of emotion. You see, emotional detachment is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not walking away, it's stepping above. And once you're above, you can see farther. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not just a quote, that's a tool for life, especially under pressure. Now, you don't get there overnight, it takes practice. When your blood starts to boil, count to 10. When fear creeps in, write it down. Ask yourself, is this fear based on fact or feeling? This simple habit shifts you from being reactive to being reflective. And that shift, my friend, changes everything. Because when everyone else is losing their head, your calm becomes your edge. When markets crash, when competitors falter, when people retreat, you advance. Not out of recklessness, but because your mind isn't chained to emotion, it's directed by principle. So detach but stay engaged. Feel but don't be ruled by feelings. Observe but don't absorb the panic. That's how you keep your mind like still water, unshaken, reflective, and deep. And that, more than talent or timing, is what keeps you moving forward while others freeze. Let me share something important about the mind. Think of it like a fortress, with gates that control what enters and what stays out. These gates are the things you allow into your life every day. The books you read, the people you spend time with, the stories you hear on the news, and the conversations you engage in. If you aren't careful, these gates can let in chaos disguised as information, fear disguised as news, and negativity disguised as casual talk. And over time, this constant flood of junk builds a restless, reactive mind that's quick to panic and slow to act wisely. I've seen it in my own journey. Early on, I allowed the worries and doubts of those around me to weigh me down. I soaked up pessimism like a sponge and found my mind swirling with doubt and distraction. It wasn't until I started guarding those gates, choosing carefully what I read, who I listened to, and how I spent my time, that my mind began to calm and focus. I switched from consuming clutter to seeking wisdom, from listening to complaints to surrounding myself with solutions. Remember, as the great philosopher said, we are disturbed not by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens. That means it isn't the world outside that unsettles you, but what you let into your mind. So if you fill your mind with fear, confusion, and negativity, your inner world becomes turbulent. But if you feed it wisdom, optimism, and calm, your mind becomes a sanctuary of peace and clarity. So guard your gates fiercely. Be intentional about the voices you invite into your life and the ideas you nurture in your mind. Turn off the noise that breeds anxiety and tune in to what empowers you. Replace idle gossip with insightful reading. Swap toxic associations for those who uplift and challenge you. Feed your mind with timeless truths and principles that build strength rather than strip it away. The quality of your inner world shapes how you respond to the outer world. When your mind is well guarded and nourished, it's easier to stay calm under pressure and focused when risks arise. Your mind becomes a fortress strong, steady, and ready for anything life throws your way. There's a profound truth in the connection between clarity and calm. When the mind is uncertain, it becomes a restless sea, tossing with every wave of doubt and fear. But when you have clear goals, your mind becomes a steady river, flowing with purpose and direction. Uncertainty breeds anxiety. It is the fog that clouds judgment and breeds hesitation. But clarity is the lighthouse that guides you through storms, helping you navigate risks with confidence and calm. Early in my life, I remember feeling overwhelmed by challenges because I hadn't yet defined what I truly wanted. My goals were vague and I was easily distracted by every problem that came my way. It was like trying to sail a ship without a compass, constantly being tossed off course. But once I sat down and deliberately defined my goals, writing them out in detail, everything changed. Suddenly, the noise around me faded and my focus sharpened. I knew exactly what I was working toward, and that sense of purpose steadied my mind. As the philosopher Seneca wisely noted, if one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable. When you lack clarity, every setback feels like a catastrophe. Every risk seems overwhelming. But when you have a clear destination, you learn to harness the winds of challenge, using them to propel you forward rather than pushing you off course. Having clarity does not mean you ignore difficulties or risks. Instead, it means you don't let them distract you. Problems become mere stepping stones, not obstacles that paralyze you. You understand that the path to wealth, success, or peace isn't always smooth, but because your vision is clear, you're anchored by purpose. So train your mind daily to define what you want with precision. Set your goals so clearly that distractions fade into the background. When your purpose is clear, your mind finds calm. When your mind is calm, you act decisively. And when you act decisively, you move closer to the wealth and life you desire. Peace is not something that simply happens to you. It's a standard you set and a condition you uphold. If you allow chaos, whether in your surroundings, your relationships, or even within your own thoughts, you invite turmoil into your life. The calm, steady mind that attracts wealth is one that refuses to settle for anything less than peace. It raises the bar, saying, "This is where I stand. This is the level of calm I will maintain no matter what." I've seen many people drift through life accepting disorder, allowing distractions and conflicts to erode their focus. I was once like that myself, tolerating situations and relationships that chipped away at my calm. It wasn't until I decided to raise my standards intentionally, deliberately, that I began to see a real change. I started to say no to distractions, no to negativity, and no to anything that disturbed my peace. This wasn't about avoidance, but about protecting the inner sanctuary where growth and success take root. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Raising your standards for peace means you control your reactions by controlling what you allow into your life. If your environment is filled with chaos, it's your responsibility to clean house. If your mind is cluttered, it's your duty to clear the fog. Setting high standards doesn't mean your life becomes perfect or free of challenges. It means you no longer accept the unnecessary noise that disrupts your focus. It means you cultivate calm as fiercely as you pursue success. Peace becomes your baseline, and from that place of strength, you make decisions that attract lasting wealth. So, refuse to tolerate chaos. Raise your standards. Guard your peace as if it were your most valuable asset, because in truth it is.